It was always a whole process. We dig through the closet or go into the basement even to find it. And once we did, we'd take it outside, unzip it, open it up, shake it out, and leave it in the sun so the air could get to it a bit and the sunlight too before we started. Getting ready for camp felt like a long and laborious production, and getting the duffel bag ready was the first most important step. My duffel bag was army green with my name in bright yellow letters. Then, of course, there was the shopping. Endless shopping for the items on that packing list, and camp paraphernalia galore, like that collapsible drinking cup, a clip-on reading lamp, and even a toiletry bag. So this is the time of year when parking lots fill up with minivans, trunks are stuffed with duffel bags and pillows and mismatched rain boots, and children who can barely contain their excitement are dropped off at a bus or a bunk with a hug that lasts a little longer than usual. Summer has arrived, and for many, that means someone they love is heading somewhere they cannot follow. But I want to suggest to you tonight at this moment, this particular Jewish moment of sending and being sent belongs to all of us. Not just as parents, not just as kids who might be going to camp, every single person in this room, because this week's Torah portion speaks to all of us. This week's parashat, Shlach Lecha, God instructs Moses to send 12 leaders, one from each tribe, to scout the land of Canaan. Their assignment is to see what it holds and to bring back a report. As instructed, they go and they spend 40 days surveying the land, and when they return, they carry a branch bearing a giant single cluster of grapes. It's so enormous that it takes 2 men to carry it on a pole between them. The report reveals that the land flows with milk and honey. It is everything it was promised to be. And then 10 of the 12 spies lose their nerve. We read in Numbers chapter 13, verse 28, however, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large, and moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The word ephes, meaning however, is when the spies pivot in their report. It is the very moment that they acknowledge the beauty of the land and then intermediately undercut it with fear. Then these words follow. We were like grasshoppers in our own eyes. Consider this description. We were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, not in the eyes of the giants, in their own eyes. Upon hearing this negative report, the congregation weeps and they rage. They say, let us go back to Egypt. Better to have never even left at all. 2 of the spies, only 2, Caleb and Joshua, hold firm and try to assure the fearful people. They assert, the land's very, very good. Don't fear. Don't be afraid. God is with us. Tragically, the damage is done. The ancient Israelites can't hear it. And for that failure, that refusal to trust themselves, a whole generation wanders for 40 years before anyone sets a foot in the promised land. This is a hard story, a painful story, and a defining story. What's always struck me about this story is that the 10 spies, they weren't wrong. They weren't lying. The cities were fortified. There were formidable people in the land. Their report was factually accurate. What failed them, though, was not information. What failed them was interpretation. The surveyor saw real obstacles and concluded, we can't do this. Caleb and Joshua saw the same obstacles and concluded, we can do this. They all saw the same things. They had all the same facts, but came back to the community with entirely different reports about what those facts meant. The Torah is not asking us to be naive, and it's not saying that giants aren't real, but it's asking us to notice the power of the story we tell ourselves when we stand at the edge of something vast and unfamiliar. Are we grasshoppers? Or are we people capable of entering a new place and finding our footing even when it feels hard and scary? That question, that choice between those two stories, it's not a question for 12 ancient spies in the wilderness. It's a question for us, and it visits us again and again at every threshold, at every age. At the end of tonight's service, we'll offer a blessing for people in our congregation who are heading off to camp this summer. Sleepaway camp is one of the first times that children are asked to be brave on their own terms. No parents, no familiar walls or surroundings, just themselves in a new place with new people. It brings an incredible amount of excitement, and for those going to a new camp or going to camp for the very first time, it may actually bring some fear, trepidation, or uncertainty. I loved camp as a kid. It was my home away from home, my highlight of the year, the place that shaped me in profound ways. And even with all that joy and happiness, there were moments when I felt like a grasshopper. Small, out of place, and not sure I belonged. And what we know, even when they don't know it yet, is that our children and those going to camp are much more capable than they think. The land of camp is very, very good. And who they will become at camp is just waiting for them. It just needs a chance to show itself. But here's the thing, that grasshopper moment, it doesn't end when we're children at camp. It doesn't end at 18 or 40 or 65 or 75. That grasshopper feeling is a part of the human experience, of stepping outside our comfort zone and part of what it means to keep growing. I've sat with people at every stage of life. And I can tell you that the story of the 10 spies is not a children's story. It is a life story. The story of a person standing at the edge of a new chapter. It may be after a marriage ends, or part of the story of one who has just retired and suddenly doesn't know who they are without their title or the structure of their professional life. It's a story of the empty nester walking back into a house that seems just too quiet, and wondering what comes next. It's the story of the broken-hearted person who wonders how they will survive without their dearest one. This is the story anyone who has ever stood at a threshold, excited and terrified at the same time, and brokenhearted, it is the story of every person who has heard that little voice within them whisper, however, but, except, the voice that says, maybe not me. Maybe not now. Maybe it's too late. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I'm too set in my ways. Maybe I'm too young or too small. We are like grasshoppers in our own eyes. The Talmud teaches that we are each obligated to say, the world was created for my sake. This comes out not out of arrogance, but out of the radical insistence that your life, your presence, your particular vision of the land, it matters. It is the insistence that we're not grasshoppers and we were not sent into this world to shrink from it. Caleb, one of the surveyors who came back with a positive report, had a ruach acheret, a different spirit. Torah tells us that he looked at the same landscape as the other spies, and he told a different story, a courageous story. What if each of us chose a ruach acheret, a different spirit, What if each of us chose to look at whatever threshold that we're standing at, whatever we've been putting off, avoiding, deferring, or quietly mourning, and say, the land is good, and I am capable of meeting it. Imagine what it might feel like. Imagine what might happen. In a few weeks, the campers will all come home. It'll happen before we know it. Tired and possibly sunburned and somehow taller, they will be full of stories, the best stories. They will have done something really special. They will have crossed the threshold of the unknown and uncertainty and found that just waiting on the other side were moments of greatness and joy and moments of self-discovery and growth in all the best ways. And if they're honest, there will be moments that they felt like grasshoppers. On this Shabbat, when we read about the spies, may each of us walk towards a new threshold to cross and choose to be like Caleb with a ruach acheret, a different spirit that embraces possibility and growth and looks towards the goodness that can be found and can be ours if we choose it. Shabbat shalom.